Okay, so we're back with our MVC Music Store. So we're going to do a couple more things before we wrap up. So one is we want to deal with this price. We could change it here on the index view, but again, this is something we could actually handle through our model by making a global change. So let's go to the album model and see if there's an annotation we can use. So we already know that price has got to be numeric. Actually, I'd say there's actually two things we should do with the price. Because right now it does validate that it's numeric. So for example, if I do this, the model is going to complain, which is good, right? Because our model says it has to have a numeric value. However, right now, there's nothing to stop me from doing this. My model is going to allow this. So we should, yes, we're paying you to take this from us. We hate it so much. Okay. So we want to do both. We want to format this as currency. What is a reasonable kind of rule in terms of what are allowable values for price? What would make sense? Okay, so maybe 0 should be a floor. We can't have it negative. You know, we could give something away for free by making it 0. So there's an annotation we want to use. It starts with an R. Type R and look through the list and make a suggestion as to what range we can use. Yep. So here's our parameters. Min, so min is 0. Now we do have to set up a max. So this is where we often have a conversation with our client. Okay, we're setting up the rules. What is the highest possible price we might ever allow for one of your products? So what is reasonable, do you think? Okay, $500. We could. What if our music store starts selling like vintage guitars? Maybe not, right? So always best to make that upper limit higher than we think we need so that we're not going to have to go back and change it, right? We've got to try to think these things long term. So maybe let's say, set it at 100,000. So if we build with that, that minus 25 price shouldn't allow me to save anymore. We'll come to that in just a second. That's next. So yes, you find that and we'll come to you in a minute. Right? So now it gives me that range. Now, when you set up these annotations, if it's an error, you also have the ability, I don't know if you noticed, there was an optional parameter after, which is an error message. So you don't have to use the built-in error messages. You can customize your own. And this should be error message. If you want to customize those validation messages, you can. I try and save it. Now it should give me my custom error message instead. So same thing, you could customize and add an error message onto the numeric if you wanted to say something else if they put in a value that wasn't numeric. So that's an optional parameter. So what about the display format? How do we show it as currency? There's a few ways we can do it. Virginia? Data type. There was data type. So this should globally format any price value currency. We could also use, there's an annotation called data format string, where there's different string formats. So there's currency, there's dates, times, other kinds of standard formats, phone numbers. So we could use that if we wanted. Yep. Yes, yes. So in the local, I'm not sure with data type. Yeah, not this one. With data format string, yes, you can specify. You could specify, I think C is a general currency format. If you wanted to specify, this is British pounds, this is Indian rupees, this is something else, you can specify a localization code. So now if we build actually, let me just go back here. So I'll refresh my edit page. So notice it doesn't show as currency in our form. This is by design, so that people don't have to worry about the currency symbol. But on any page that's displaying price outside of a form control, notice it's currency now. Let me go to details. So that data type currency will do our formatting, and it's global, so anywhere we reference album.price, it'll automatically show as currency, unless it's inside of an input control. So the last thing we want to do, and we're going to have to do this separately on added edit, because they're two separate views. Let's maybe go to create first. So I would say there's 1, 2, 3. I would say there's 5 changes we need to make here. What things should be modified on this page? Nathaniel? Yeah, so let's change those labels. Yep. What else? Ben? Yeah, instead of a text box, let's make this a file upload. 2 other things, lad. Okay, yeah, we could do that. We could reformat those. But there's one kind of functional problem still. That's true. We could put a placeholder in there if we wanted. Ali? Well, that is a bit of a problem. Now, there's a few ways we could do this. So let's say we're going to put in a new album in our store, but the artist isn't in our list. What options do we have? Right, we'd have to scaffold out a separate artist controller, go there, create the artist, and then come back. That would be the least amount of work for us, not the best user experience. How could we give the user a better experience? We're not going to do this because it would just take too long. Yeah, we could. Any other suggestions? Yep. Okay. Another way we could do it that might be the best from a user experience point of view is change this from a drop down into a text box and use jQuery's autocomplete function. So as the user starts typing, it starts populating the list of matching characters. But that would still allow them to save a new artist. What we'd have to do though then is in our create post method, we'd need to check, we need to write code in the back end and say, if the artist that was posted, does this artist exist in the artist table? And if it doesn't, we then need to save the new artist before saving the album. So it'd be a fair amount of work. We'd need jQuery on the front end, write that query, and we have to do that check in the back end. But that would be a good from a user experience point of view, because they don't have to leave the page and come back. They could do it right here. Pardon? Well, the point is the autocomplete box they should see it. But yes, there's a chance they will add an artist that's already in there, but they'll just spell it differently. That's possible. Right? We can only idiot-proof things so much. Okay. So yes, it's true, we have no ability, but there is actually a problem with these menus as they are. What's wrong with them? They're not sorted, right? They're sorted by ID. So trying to find your artist as this grows gets really difficult because you have to look through every one because it's not in any particular order. You have no idea where the artist you're looking for might actually be. So both of these, now the genre one's not quite as big of a problem because it's a small list and this list isn't likely to change, but we should be sorting both of these lists alphabetically. And we need to do it both on create as well as on edit. So we'll change create, and then we'll need to make the same changes on edit. So we'll deal with the labels. So I'm going to open up my create view. So the labels are actually hard-coded here. In create, on line 19 and 27, these labels are actually hard-coded here. Now we could either just take out the word ID here. That's the quick and dirty way. Adrian, you also suggested what if we pull it from, we can try it that way. This should then pull our alias because we've aliased genre name as genre. And on line 27, if we use model, instead of those same name, we've already given those aliases of genre and artist. So that should fix our labels. Didn't work very well, did it? Hang on. Well, we've already set it. Well, the parameter here is the label. In which model? So we've already in artist, we've already aliased this property. No, because it's actually hard-coded right here. I tried to get it from the model, but I didn't like that very much. So there may be a way to do it from the model, but I'll have to think about that one. For now, maybe we'll just replace. Right, so genre first. Artist second. I'll have to come and see how I did it. Okay, I'm gonna have a look at it. I'm not entirely sure why referencing the model here threw an error for me. I'm gonna have to do some experimenting with that. So for now, I've just taken out ID from those strings. Where would we go to resort these lists alphabetically? where's the data coming from. It is coming from the database, but it's not listed in the view. We just have a drop down. So where would we go if we want to resort that? Yeah, we're going to go into the controller. And if I go to my create method, notice there's two create methods here. There's one that's empty and one that accepts an album parameter. So one of them is a get and one of them is a post. Right now we're dealing with the get. We're just loading the form. So we're loading this version on line 50. Get albums create. So it actually uses the view bag to pass in a list of artists and a list of genres to populate. So we can just do sorting here. We want to sort our artists. Name. We want to sort genres by name. That will resort those lists if we build. Without the sorting, it just sorts sequentially by ID, lowest to highest. So we're overriding that sort order. So this select list right now, this collection has three properties. The data we're passing in, which column is going to be used for the values in the select list, and which column values are going to be displayed in the menu. So these should sort alphabetically now. So both genres and artists are A to Z. So if we add a new artist, it'll appear alphabetically where it needs to go. So we've done the easy stuff. Now we need to do the harder part, which is processing the file upload and saving it. And then we'll basically repeat this on our edit, but we'll have to tweak a few things. Because on our edit view, we're going to have to keep the code that selects the right item in the list. We also should display, rather than writing the path, we should use this as an image tag. If there is a current album cover, we should show the cover and then let a user overwrite it by uploading a different one. So on our create, let's scroll down to line 53 and 54. This is our text box for the album art URL and a validation box. We can get rid of what's here. We're just going to replace this file upload. Make sure you give it the name of album art URL, because this has to get mapped on the back end. So if you save and reload your view in the browser, that text box should be gone on create, and we should get a browse button with the file upload. You click it, it'll open a file dialog box. HTML is an incredibly dumb language, but actually being able to browse for a file is one of the few rare things it can actually do. So now if we create, we get this. There's one more thing we do have to do here. Jog your memories. It's only been, I don't know how many months since you learned how to upload a file in a PHP page. Whenever we have a file upload in a web form, there's something else we have to modify in the form. Otherwise, the file upload just gets ignored. Nope. We actually already have that already. So here's our form. So here's our form. We have an action, and by default, all .NET MVC forms, it gives the method equals post. How does a file actually get uploaded through a form? What happens? So when you submit an assignment on Blackboard, how does that file get copied from your computer to the web server so that I can download it? What happens? We're not using FTP. How does a file actually get copied? Okay.
Is something called buffering?
You're getting warmer. Here's what happens. When we upload a file, that file actually gets converted to binary. And that binary code gets included as part of our form post. So when a page on the server was using some kind of server-side script processes that, it converts that binary back into the original file type and renders a copy. In order for that binary conversion to happen, we need to add another attribute to our form. Does anybody remember what that attribute is? And if you don't have it, any file uploads, they don't error out, they just get completely ignored. It's like they never happened. So any page that includes an upload, I can actually probably see it here. So here's Blackboard. Here's how I'd add something on Blackboard. We'll find the form tag. Right. What attribute does our form need in order to do that binary conversion? You see it in the middle of my... We need the encoding type. Without this encoding type equals multi-part form data, any files that got uploaded do not get converted to binary and don't get copied to the server. We won't get an error, but the file just gets ignored. So we need this attribute. Right now, when we view the source of our page, here's our form. It just has an action and a method. There's no encoding type. So those file uploads will get ignored. So we can go to our form and we should talk about this. There is no form tag. The form is generated with a server-side method, HTML begin form. Obviously, that gives us the method in action, yet we need to add this encoding type attribute on here. So this HTML begin form right now renders form, action, and method. So we're going to need to modify this. We still are okay to use that server-side method of the form, but we need to include the encoding type. And then we'll also need to talk about this, which is super important. So our begin form method actually has 8 overloads. The default scaffold just gives us the basic overload, no parameters. Post and post to the same URL we're on currently. So create will post to create, edit will post to edit. So we're going to use a different version. Sure. The first thing we're going to put in is the action. We're posting to the create action in the albums controller. Next parameter is the method, which is going to be post. We use a constant for this form method.post. This is where we specify the encoding type attribute. If we don't, we can't upload. Let's see, part data. Sent a midterm question, boys and girls. About file uploads and HTML form encoding. And the reason I'm stressing this over and over again is because we don't get an error if this doesn't work. So if you leave the encoding type out, you'll be scratching your head as to why did my file upload? Because there's no error that will tell you, hey, you tried to upload a file and you didn't have the form encoding. So if we refresh the create form now and view the source again, our form tag should now include that attribute enc type equals multi-part form data. We'll just check with a refresh. So now our form includes, did I not save my changes? So now our form includes the encoding type attribute. I just want to spend a minute talking about this. Very nice of Microsoft to give us this. What the heck does it mean?
I don't know exactly. But
you can guess.
By reading it.
Yep. You're on the right track. This is designed to prevent a very specific kind of attack. Well, if we go to our controller, it actually tells you in post albums create to protect from overposting attacks. Read this link. It's not a CAPTCHA because we don't have a CAPTCHA, but let's read what it does. Cross-site scripting forgery. So that means if you post a form, you build it with .NET MVC, and you post it on Ali.com, I can create a form over on Rich.com that posts to yours and sends junk to your page. What this does, if we view the source of our page, our form has this anti-forgery token. If you notice what comes right after my form tag, it creates a hidden field with an encrypted token. What happens in the controller, before it processes any post, it validates that that token is on the same domain, same server. So if I try to send a post to your method and I don't have the same token, your method is it's not gonna run. It's gonna block those requests. So if I put a form on my site or I use an HTTP tool like Fiddler or Postman and create a post request to go to your site, this is gonna check for that token and block it. Okay. So a full description of that is in here. So they show you here. Here's how to use Fiddler and post to someone else's form. And this is one of the most common types of web attacks. In the top 10, we'll actually look at the top 10 next week. So a lot of the tools Microsoft gives us are designed to prevent the most common kinds of attacks in web applications. So whenever we scaffold the forms, if you look at edit, edit's got the same. So in our post method here, there it is validating, and our edit view will also call that anti-forgery token. So scaffolding does this by default. I strongly recommend you leave it on. If you build your own forms, use the anti-forgery token in your view and call the validate method in your post methods of your controller.
that is visible.
It is visible in the source. That's a good question. I'm not sure how it works behind the scenes. I suspect it won't work, that the token is unique to the server and that they're generating something on there with some kind of globally unique ID that's only stored on the server, I would expect. Good question. Okay. So our form part's done, but now in our post method, in our create post method, we need to process the file upload. Because right now we could still add an album, but that image, we're not doing anything with it. We're uploading it on the front end and we're ignoring it on the back end. So in our controller, we're going to go to the other create method, the one that takes an album. This is the post version. So on mine starts on line 52. It's probably the same line number in your controller. So before we save, so this adds the new album to the collection, and save changes actually commits that insert to the database. Before we do, we want to upload the album cover if we have one. So the first thing we'll do is we'll check the HTTP request. HTTP request has a files collection, so we can check if there's anything in that files collection. They didn't upload anything, there's nothing there. If they did, there should be one file in there. So we can just check the count property. If we've got a file, we can just refer to the first element in that list because there's only going to be one. We don't have 3 upload boxes, we only have 1. So we're going to have 0 files or 1. There's no other possibility. Make sure our file has a name. It's not 0 kilobytes. Yes, we could also check the MIME type. We could do other things. We'll just do this for today. So in order to save this, we need the full directory path. It's not a virtual path. It's a physical file path on the drive. The problem is our local file path and our file path when we upload to the server, they're going to be different. So we need that path to be dynamic. On our hard drive, it may be C, COMP2084, but on Azure, it's God knows whatever drive and path Azure gives us. We don't even know. So we want this to be dynamic. I'll create a string called path. And the .NET framework gives us a way to get the physical file path from the root drive. Server.map path. We're setting up a destination. So this is where we want the file to go. Whatever the current directory is for the project root, and then content images file name. And then we just call file.status. This is kind of the equivalent of PHP's move uploaded file. It takes the file out of cache, saves it to a target directory with a specific name. Yes, thank you. Nice catch. The last thing we want to do is we want to set the album art URL property equal to the file name. So not only are we uploading the file, we're saving the name in the database. Normally, saving the path on all the files isn't necessary. For some reason, the script I grabbed for the setting up the music store, it includes the full path in all the image names. Probably would have been better to remove that every semester. I think I'll take that out, and every semester I forget to do it. So if all of the current images have the have the folder path, we'll include it in the new ones. Yes, we could also set up unique names if we wanted. Right now, this will just overwrite an existing file with that name. So we could use, there's a GUID class that would generate a unique GUID that we could append on to the ID. If you want to try that, feel free to do it. That's probably the simplest way of making sure your file names are unique. I think I'll skip over that for today. So just we have a friendly file name. So let's try this out. Let's see if we can add a new album and upload an image and see if how this all works. So I'll create a new album. Okay, so here's my new album with my album cover being uploaded and being displayed. So we know our upload obviously worked.
So what does how does the image look like in the database?
Great question. So we're appending the original image name with /content/images, which normally I wouldn't do, but the database, as we set it up, it all had them like that.
The image file, is it in the database?
No, we're only storing the names. It's generally not recommended that you store the files itself in the database because the databases just get too big too fast and the storage costs become enormous. Typically, when we upload files, we simply store a path to the file. And if we look in the file system, or if I look here under content and images, if I refresh, the image is here. It's on the file system.
For someone to be able to view an image for a user, they would have to have this same file structure. They would have to have the same files that we have, basically.
Pretty much. Now, if it's a huge site, so let's say something like Facebook, they don't put all the images in one folder, right? So each profile has a unique ID. So when you create a profile, they create probably a physical folder for each profile, and all of your images go in there. Even within there, you may have, each album would have its own physical folder with a unique ID. So if you have lots and lots of images, yes, you'd probably want to organize it a little more. Like we could have for here, we might have, because we may have lots of images on here, we may have within images, we might have an album covers folder only. So all the album covers go just in that folder so that they're separate from any of other image files on the site. So you can organize that as you see fit.
So I'm seeing that the pizza file is not included in the project. So will that affect the string of the image and here?
It does in this case, but only because I uploaded the image locally. Once I put it online, it's stored in content images on the server. So that's okay, right? Because people will be uploading through on the live site. Okay. So our create's done. So what I'm going to suggest is it's only going to take us a few minutes. Let's just finish edit and then we can finish in about 10 minutes. And as I said, I'll stick around until the end of class. People want help. Otherwise, you can get out of here. No point taking a break to come back for 10 minutes. So we can run through edit pretty quickly because most of the changes are the same things we've already done. So let's open up our edit view. So if you go and look at the video for this week's class and you say, hey, there's only 2 videos. Yes, there's only 2 videos worth of content. I didn't miss one. So let's change genre ID and artist ID. Line 21. And let's just take out ID and our labels. So you can see which lines they're highlighted in green. 21 and 29, just take out ID inside the quotes. Again, we're going to replace, this time it's lines 55 and 56. That was a text box for the album art URL. Whoops. First, we'll put on an input. We also want to display, when we're editing, we want to display the current image. So in this case, we can just use model dot or alternate text will be the name of the album. So this will show us the current image and let us change it. We also need the encoding type in our form. So we've got to do similar thing. In our HTML begin form tag up at the top, we need to add the encoding type attribute. Now this one will be slightly different. Like, replace line 55 and 56 with an input type file and an image tag. Try this and just see if our image shows up first. And then we'll have to come back and deal with our form tag. The image is a little big. I might want to replace that. But it does show up. I can browse to a new one. Our labels say genre artist, which is better. We're going to need to change the sorting here as well. We'll do that in a minute, but we have no encoding type on our form yet. So up at the top, in begin form, we have to use a different overload here. Post to edit. Control it. Method will still be post. Instead of just adding the encoding type here, we actually need this version. So the method becomes the 4th parameter. If we post it now, it'll post to edit, but we're going to lose the album ID. So we need to pass the album ID as a parameter to the edit method, so we know which record we're editing. So here, new ID equals Yes, I know that's long. But you can see everything. So I'll highlight in blue everything we're adding. The method name, the controller name, parameter the method needs, the action type, and the HTML attribute we're adding form tag. We use the most complicated version of this method that we possibly could. So these are all the changes we need in our view. Yep.
With the ID path again, please.
Okay. You know what? We'll take it out for a minute and we'll see what happens. I'll take it out of my mind. Maybe we don't need it, but I think we do. Just refresh here. Okay, I guess it did do my edit, didn't it? Okay, all right, I guess we don't need it. I thought if we didn't pass the parameter, we would lose it. We don't, so. Yeah, but it's interesting that it kept that parameter. I didn't think it would. I thought we would lose it, so I guess we don't need that version. Okay. So now in our controller, first we want to modify the get version because we want to resort those lists, right? Our lists are not alphabetical. So we want to add an order by clause on line 93 and one on line 94. So this version has a fourth parameter, which is which value should be selected in the list. On the create, we don't need to pre-select any value because it's a brand new record. But when we're editing, we don't want it to default to the first artist and first genre. We want to show the existing artist and genre for this album. So that's what this fourth parameter is. We don't have this in the create version. Our method call ends here. So if we build and refresh, we won't see any change yet, but you'll see a change if you click the drop down. Right now, these are not alphabetical. They should be alphabetical after we compile. So now AAC is at the top. So again, we just applied the same change we made to the create method to the edit method. And now when we're posting, before we say an album's been modified and saved, we can just copy and paste the code straight from the create to process a file upload. So I'll go back to my create, and I'll just grab that section of the script that we added, where we're checking the file upload and saving it. So we'll just copy that to our edit. Didn't have to change anything here. This section here. Everything we added related to checking if there was a file upload and saving it if there was. Yep. So we had it in the create post method. We also need it in the edit post method when we're updating. The exact same code. And we want to do this before we save because we need to process the file to get the name of the image. If we save first, we save to the database first and upload the file second, we don't know what the album path should be. So now I should be able to modify and name. Tacos are better than pizza, so our album will be more expensive. So it should update both the price as well as update the image now. And it did not. Interesting. My path is very interesting. Albums edit. Didn't work so well. What did we miss? So why did my price change? Let's see. Try my placeholder for a minute.
Because we chose the wrong overloading.
I wonder if it is. I'm going to put this back here with the ID. I suspect we might need it. After all. I can't explain why it updated the price, but not the image. We'll try again. No, that doesn't seem to be the issue. Oh, it's not including my file path, my path here. Why not? Let's see. I know why it's not including it. Let's see. I'm not sure I compiled. I think that's why. So my code to process the file upload, I think, was not part of my DLL. Action. Encoding type. Because I made a typo. Where's the problem? That's why. See what happens when you don't have the attribute multi-part form data? Your file upload gets ignored. So in edit. That's my problem. Yeah, it was grabbing the name, but it doesn't actually save the file. So I don't think I need that after all. One last try. Okay. There we go. Okay, go eat Thanksgiving fish tacos and margaritas. I will see most of you next week. If you're at the Deloitte event, enjoy that and good luck.
Thank you.